What are your thoughts on down nowadays with the invention of, I guess,
It's
with better
changed.
quality
Yeah.
synthetic? Everything's a little bit
So
different now.
since then, like, because we wanted to continue to innovate, the problem with that is we could only get like a 650 fill power, right?
Okay.
But it's like, well, we want something better. We want to keep moving that. So then we started to blend down, and we did like different ratios of blending. At first, it was like 20% down, and then it was like, all right, let's keep moving the needle. So then we kept testing blending down, and this synthetic until we've worked our way up to where it's almost 100% down. Like we're way closer to that ratio of down in the product with just a little bit of synthetic, and we find that that little bit of synthetic will keep it from collapsing, and then it can dry itself out. And there's just no need to have that much synthetic. You can have, 90% of the benefits of down with just this little trace amount of synthetic that completely eliminates that fear of like total down failure.
Mm.
Um, so that's what we've been running for quite a while. Now, as we continue to spend more and more time outside, there's a strong possibility that we'll actually just go back to a fully down jacket. Um, but this piece we have right now, part of the reason why we're even considering that is because we paired, like, our newest down jackets have a stitchless weaving process. So we actually weave the baffles into it when it's going from yarn to fabric. And so there's no stitching in it. And we're not welding it either. Like, weld points are like big and fat, and like, you don't want that either. It's literally a seamless stitch. And so what that does is it creates a jacket or a fabric that has 10,000 less needle holes than your average jacket. And that's 10,000 less spots for water to like get stuck on threads and get inside the jacket, or dirt to get in, or wind to cut through the jacket on
Yep.
stitch points. And so as we've used that more and more, it's incredibly water repellent. So like, it's not a rain jacket, and I need to clarify
Sure.
that, but like, I've had the jacket out in heavy monsoons for an hour at a time and not gotten wet on the inside of the jacket, right? So it's really, really impressive in that way, and it's kind of like led us to be able to get more aggressive with, say, down percentages and have no fear in terms of like total failure, right? But
So this synthetic material that's kind of loose, like down, like normally it comes in the, correct me if I'm wrong, but normally like synthetic comes in like a sheet-ish thing. This is
Mhm.
kind of just loose
Yeah,
down, or it looks like, I guess, loose like it would be down. So when it mixed with, I suppose when it mixes with real down, it probably keeps that, like you said, it's like, I guess the word, for lack of a better term,
think
like
of like a
springy.
little fiber ball. Yeah, just think
Okay.
of like a
Yeah.
little synthetic fiber ball, and then you put a
Okay.
bunch of them together. So when you mix it in with down, those little fiber balls kind of sit here,
Gotcha.
and allow the down to not fully collapse, right? And
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. That's where down, like, and again, this is in 10 years, I've never seen down fully collapse in the field. I've never had that experience.
Mm.
It can happen in an extreme situation where, I don't know, like, you fall into a river, or, but I take different precautions where there's just
Yeah.
never a real risk with it now. But, um, yeah, like, what you find is that by having just a little bit in there, what keeps down from ever like drying out if it did get wet in the field and totally fail is it clumps up and completely becomes this ball, and you can't dry it out because it's so dense of a down ball. But if you've
Mhm.
got a little bit of that, the fiber ball, the synthetic ball in there to keep it spaced out a little and spread out a little, it will dry and it will rebound. But even on total failure, like on tests we've done, the most like total failure we can get is to have it lose 50% of its loft. It'll still hold 50% of its loft on full saturation, like holding it underwater, squeezing water
Mhm.
into it, letting it, like a sponge, like underwater. Like, think about holding a sponge underwater, squeezing it and letting it soak up the water. Even when we do that, it still is retaining 50% of its loft.
Boy, you got to be in a really extreme environment, like situation. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yes.
fear mongering out there that
Hmm.
is due to, I mean, marketing slash fear mongering for a lot of stuff. You know, everyone's afraid of their down completely collapsing, but the more experts you talk to, they kind of say the same thing. Like, it's got to be pretty bad for something to wet out that
You've
extreme,
got
you
to
know?
make a mistake, really. You've got to
Yeah.
make like a big mistake.
Yeah.
Like, for me, at least, I pack my sleeping bag inside of a dry bag. That's
Mhm.
like, that's my compression method. I use a dry bag that compresses. That's how we sell our top quilts and sleeping bags. That's how we recommend it. Um, So like even if you drop your backpack into a river,
Yeah.
it's still totally fine. So yeah, like the more time you spend out there. In fact, it's funny because the only story I've ever heard of a guy that was like, oh yeah, like my down got totally wet on this float trip and it was the most miserable time ever. He also happened to work for an insulation company that only sold synthetic insulation. That's the only guy I've ever heard have
Yeah.
a terrible, terrible, life-changing. But yeah, to me, like you're not wearing your down jacket in the rain. You should always have a rain shell if it's going to be raining. You can pair them. You shouldn't be taking your sleeping bag out in the rain. It should be inside your tent. So unless you have a failure in terms of like your tent fails and it's raining, but even then you've got a DWR coating on the face fabrics. It takes, if you've ever, the thing I would say, do this for people at home listening to this that have a fear of this. Take your sleeping bag to a bathtub and try to soak it out. Try it. Like, just like you're going to wash it, right? Fill up the bathtub, shove it under the water, watch it pop up. Shove it under the water, watch it pop up. Compress it, hold it under the water. Like you have to like compress it and hold it under the water and suck the water into the insulation to even start to get it to wet out. They're, down, you look at ducks, like ducks float for a reason. Ducks like literally live on water, and then we're like so scared of down coming in contact with water. And that's where some of the new coatings are also interesting because we've had like hydrophobic coatings on down for a long time, but this last year we've released a piece with Expedry down that basically has nano gold particles on it, but it allows you to not have to scrub off the duck DWR that's naturally on the down to apply a new down. So it has like its natural down repellency, and then we're mixing in a nano gold particle that allows it to dry ridiculously fast. And that's where more of the issues come from is you're on day 5 of a trip. It's really humid. It's really wet. Your down starts to lose 15% of its loft just from humidity day after day, getting packed up, and that's where we saw that like this Expedry technology really shined. And so we've moved more and more towards that direction of things. But
it's funny, I've also heard a lot of people like, oh, well, when my bag touches the end of my tent and it gets wet, I think a lot of people tend to make a big deal about something that's not actually a big deal. Like the foot of your bag getting a little bit wet. Sure, it happens, but boy, you really got to be out there for, like you said, you got to be out there for a lot of days for that to actually play a role in your overall comfort. Like if the foot of your bag getting a little bit wet, if you're trying to pair that to like why you're cold at night, I don't really know how that's like, maybe a sleeping pad could play a role, or like what you're wearing in your bag play a role.
What's interesting is the people that are like spend a lot of time out there, and you get more and more comfort, right? Because it's all a comfort thing, which really is a confidence thing. And you start to come to the point too where you're so confident in down drying out through the course of a night and whatnot that you start, like I will bring wet clothes into my down sleeping bag and allow them to dry through the night. And you think about that, and for some people that would be the most stupid thing you can do, but try it. Like it's amazing how your body heat can just push that moisture out of a bag. In extremely cold situations, you struggle with it because it gets hung up on the outer fabric a little bit because it's so cold outside of the bag. But I dry clothes all the time, especially like monsoon season around here, July, August. I'll take a few wet pieces into the bag with me and dry them out.